Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm joined by Laura Fluke, a great guest. Laura, how are you?
I am doing awesome. A little cloudy here in Michigan, but sunny inside my head, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's getting a little chilly around here too. So I guess we're kind of evening out over there. I know it's a little gets a little chilly around now, but tell the audience about the quiet room, please.
Quiet room. Well, the quiet room is something that I started in. I've been doing this actually for a few years, and kind of turned it into a small business of sorts, and called the quiet room. And I do craniosacral therapy. I do energy balancing and, healing and regulating with that. And, a lot of times we get caught up in everyday situations, daily life, where it just feels like it's too heavy or, too much for somebody and for any of us at times. And I'm kind of the person that people come to help regulate how that the bigness of an emotion or the bigness of a decision is, or just the mundane of it is. Like, I just have so many pieces to this decision I need to make. I'm so busy and I'm so scattered and I feel so anxious about this decision or whatever's going on in life. I just need to calm down, quiet down, settle in and kind of go, okay, what am I really thinking about this scenario? So, I tend to help people kind of move through places where they're having, a sense of feeling stuck, or I just don't know what I'm looking at. What do I do? How do I change this? That kind of thing.
Gotcha. And you brought up something great because I believe it's in your topic today, but these are times where a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people
Right.
think they're negative. A lot of people are dealing with a lot of negative.
Right.
And I love your idea because I wanted to pick your brain about in these times that are uncertain and
Hmm.
scary,
Right.
how do you stay grounded and how do you stay positive? I'd like your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that's a wonderful question because, I mean, life is totally unpredictable at almost any given time. It feels like these days,
Yeah, yeah.
it's kind of amusing to me that we're, in a position where we can say these days now, and, the stuff that goes around us isn't going to change per se. What we have the ability to do is to change and influence how we're going to respond to those scenarios in our life. So, we will be moved about in life by, I guess, maybe in some ways, like, how mature are we emotionally to be able to handle the upheaval that maybe is coming around us, right? So when we have a negative or an unfavorable situation, a stress, we'll say this, we have a stressful situation going on around us, then our best path of action is to try and find a way that helps us to be grounded, right? As we're trying to move through that and trying to think of, how do I do this next step? And a lot of times we don't understand how to do that.
Right.
And I think, when we have a stressful situation coming to us, we have that opportunity to pause, although some of us don't, right? We may not have that moment or that conscious, like, oh, wait, I need to stop and just think about this. What is really bothering me about this situation? And, maybe you may find, that something didn't go the way that you were expecting or hoping for. And so you have a response. Maybe you're sad or you're angry or you're disappointed or, whatever, it could be a myriad of responses. So we then in those moments kind of take a moment and kind of say, well, what am I feeling the most in this scenario? And what part of me is feeling upset about that? So we have that ability to check in and say, okay, am I thinking about the scenario accurately and currently? Or am I filtering this scenario through a previous experience? So this is one question that we can kind of go, is this now, or is this based on an experience previously?
Good point.
So I think, and a lot of times that's very helpful for us to kind of, that helps ground us going, no, what I experienced in the past is not really occurring now. It might look like it could, but we have that ability to kind of stop, assess where we're at, see where we need to go, and then move forward. So, if checking in with oneself is a little bit new, then we can kind of go, okay, I'm in a scenario that I'm feeling stressed. So do I take a moment to go and just breathe, right? Go and count to 10, they say,
Mm.
right? So what about doing something along the lines of, creating a sense of comfort for yourself and grounding for yourself by connecting to yourself? And the way that we can do this is we've got a lot of, like nervous system kind of energy centers right here by our heart, obviously, because our heart's there. And then, we have another bundle of nerves and, organs and important things in our belly, like just below, our rib cage. So a lot of times, if we're in that space of going, I just need to calm down, we can put your hand on your heart and put your hand on your belly. And you can oftentimes, just as you sink into that, just the presence of you connecting to your body with those two energy centers or those two significant points in your body, a lot of times we can just feel the body kind of resolving and calming down. I know just even in the 30 seconds we've been talking about this, having my hands here, my body's like, oh, okay, her hands are there. That means we can relax a little bit more, bring peace to a situation or, where you may be
Mhm.
settling, right? So we can also do that in such a way that just with breathing, with something as simple as 5 breaths. And, in previous conversations, I've shared with you about this method that Suzanne Scurlock has really come up with. And I think it's just a beautiful way of doing this. And she does something called a 5 breath energizer. And this is something where, we can run us through this. And, when I do this, I want to make sure that anybody listening in a car, please don't close your eyes,
Right,
right?
right, right.
But, it's something that it takes, maybe 1 to 2 minutes for us to kind of settle in, connect to the earth just a little bit, even in our mind, right? And then bring in something that feels nourishing to us to feel supportive. And, we've talked about, I think it was in the last episode that I talked about nourishing sensations. I had shared, I went apple picking with my kids and
Yeah,
my,
yeah.
my grandchildren, and it just was very, my heart was filled. That's a nourishing sensation to me. Or going for a walk in the woods and having my feet in the water or on the grass, that's a nourishing sensation to me. So when I invite someone to say, bring in something that feels nourishing, safe, supportive to you, these are the types of things that a person can bring in and kind of, oh wow, that is nourishing to me. I remember when I felt like that. Or maybe something as simple as a color or a wave or a vibration or something like that. And you just feel like, no, I feel my feet, I feel my legs. There we are. Okay. And you kind of come back to you for that moment. Have a second to kind of go, whew, okay, now what do I need to do? Right. You have that moment to think.
Right.
And, this is important when we're in scenarios that are unpredictable too. The other day, and here's, one of my infamous stories, I suppose, right? But I was with a friend the other day, and the reason we were getting together was a heavy scenario. And we were going throughout the day, and she had connected with a group of people and was sharing a story that had caused her to emote. My person is not comfortable with emotions, and I could feel just the anxiety rising in her system, not only sharing what she was sharing, of course, and feeling the words that she was sharing, but I could feel her system beginning to be very agitated and unsettled, right? So I just walked over to my friend and I simply put my arm around her. She's a little taller than I am. So my arm around her is at her waist. So,
Okay.
so, I'm just there. I'm just standing next to her as she's speaking and sharing this information. And you could feel that the information was going a little bit deeper. And I could kind of sense this isn't where she wanted to go, but here she is. And, she needed to finish the story and this information. So I found myself then now going, okay, I need to place my hand on her lower back to help her calm down and not, like her system calm down. And then there was another point at which I had my elbow kind of at her waistband, and my whole hand was up along her spine, just kind of trying to help regulate her nervous system to calm down so she could be a little bit more focused and not within her system being
She was
not
worked up a little
overwhelmed,
bit.
but rushed, right? So in this, because I knew what was going on, because I could sense what was going on, I also needed because I knew what she was saying, there was that moment where I felt I needed to be grounded
Okay.
also. Not because we were being overwhelmed, but it was such a heavy moment that in order to go and help support her in those moments, I'm thinking, okay, my feet are on the ground, I'm putting roots or light beams or rivers of awareness into the earth so that we can both be supported in this moment while she's speaking. So that moment, resolved itself, and we stepped away, and she came in and gave me this hug. She said, oh, thank God for, thank you for being there, thanks for standing so close. And it was that moment that she needed that support, that she couldn't do it for herself. So in those moments when we are able to be grounded for somebody, that's helpful. And sometimes we don't always have those moments to go and do, a 5 breath ground and fill, and let me go and sit on my yoga cushion and right?
Right.
So I have often tried to instruct people how to just imagine putting their feet on the ground and connecting into the earth. So there's an unconditional resource there. That's gravity, and it's holding us at all times, right?
Uh-huh.
I think that's such a beautiful sense to know that the earth, Mother Earth is holding us at all times. And
Yeah.
so when we're connected to the earth, it's just like, okay, you got me. That awareness comes, and then there's just a different sense of settledness. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to run you through a 5 breath ground and fill.
Sure. I'd love to. Yeah.
Just see what you think.
I'd love to learn that.
All right. So just, maybe closing your eyes slightly, and obviously if you're driving, please do not close your eyes. But you can do this with your eyes open or not. Okay. So just settling in, just noticing your head, just noticing what you notice, noticing your breath or your chest and your breath. And notice your belly, just observing your pelvis. Notice your legs. And all the way down to your feet, connecting to your earth beneath you. And a lot of times I like to invite people to kind of come up with that imagery of maybe being at their favorite place on earth today, wherever that is for them. Maybe it's a beach, maybe there's mountains or grass. And then just taking one exhale just to release anything excess that it took for you to get to this moment today. And imagining that breath will allow whatever feels too much, too heavy, too big, allowing that to go into the earth. So we're going to do 5 breaths. The first breath, we're going to bring into our legs. So imagine putting down roots or light beams or rivers of awareness. There you go. Good. And then on this first breath, just imagine, invite in sensation versus emotion that would feel nourishing to you. There you go. Bring that up into your legs, all the way into your pelvis. Good job. And then the next breath, all the way up into your belly. There you go. Good. Just bringing that awareness of connection and stability as you bring it up into your chest. There you go. And then following that natural flow, excuse me, all the way up into your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your fingers. There you go. And then that last breath, bringing all the way up from the ground through those roots or light beams or rivers of awareness through your legs, your torso, going all the way through your head, your brain, out the crown of your head, and showering down around you, bathing your skin and your energy field that runs through it and around it. And then just take a moment just to notice what it feels like to be you now from when we first started breathing. There you go. And what are you noticing, Casey?
Wow. Complete relaxation, and my heartbeat probably very low.
Yeah.
Very relaxed. Yeah, that's a head change right there.
Right. So, taking a few minutes just to breathe, and the pattern is into your legs, into your pelvis, then into your belly, then into your chest, and then into your arms and your hands, and then all the way out the crown of your head. And you're kind of creating your own internal sense of support and with using a sensation that feels comfortable to you. And, it may just, may just feel like, okay, if I could just have a hug, that would feel warm and comforting, right? Whatever you need in that moment, and just inviting that sensation in. And this is kind of, a very mini edition for what, ground and fills feel like in a session. We can go through and we can go even much slower. We can connect to the body even much more deeply. We can hold parts of the body, as we've done in actually, other sessions before, other conversations. So this is, a couple of different ways for people, but when they're in that stressful moment, it's hard for us to quote, stay positive in a negative situation. I think if we can offer the languaging of going, how do I stay grounded in a turbulent moment?
I'm much more open to deal with a situation now that I've done that breathing than I
Right,
was before.
right. Exactly. And I have to be honest with you. I mean, I had a little situation just before our call that I was a little riled, and I'm thinking, whew. And I mean, I'm, even myself, I'm like, wow, that 5 breath ground and fill was very, very helpful. And it
Yeah.
just enough to stop you for a moment so that your brain's not scattered entirely. You have a second to just kind of grab your being, right?
Mhm.
Yourself, and just kind of go, okay, what do we need to do? Okay, now we can do it for a second,
Right.
and you may need 1 or 2 more of these, 5 breath ground and fills, but, and then, of course, now if the scenario is a little bit heavier than you want, you could even do that ground and fill with your hand on your heart and on your belly.
Okay.
Then Lord only knows what could happen there. I mean, you might fall out on yourself. But
Wow.
seriously, it's an option, a couple of options just to create some sort of, you know, this is a way that we can employ energy balancing within our own system, within our own space, when, a person doesn't necessarily have the time or the ability to go and call someone like myself. But we have a tool to get through this moment, this time that I need to make this decision, or what I need to do in what's causing me a little upheaval. Now I'm calm. Okay, now I can think more clearly. Here we go. Now
Mhm.
what do I do? Situation's the same, but our ability to, instead of react, has minimized a little bit because we took that time to rest and relax for just a moment. Now we have an opportunity to shift that from reaction to response,
Okay.
and having a more clear response going, okay, I'm thinking about this. If we react, we're not really thinking about what we did.
Right. To react.
Also,
Just a reaction.
right, right. So, but if we have that moment to stop, breathe for a moment, and have a more clear head to respond with the scenario where we're in, we may have a little bit easier time, in coming up with that move, whatever that is. So
I think you proved your point when it was towards the end when the air was supposed to be up in the shoulders and the arms, and then some piece of machinery went off, made a beep or
right,
something like that, and it didn't bother me. But I think if it would have happened in the beginning when we were down by our feet and our
right,
legs,
right,
I think I might have reacted differently. I don't think I reacted at all because it
right.
towards the end. Does that make any
Very
sense?
interesting. That's a intriguing, response in your system, was that you had grounded yourself so fully that, in your moment, that sound didn't really affect you.
Right, right. And
Very cool.
if that happens, then I'm wondering if that is a good litmus test to dealing with the unfamiliar in these times and
Right,
everything like that.
exactly. It's options for us to find stability, right? We can't always find or create that stability in our life just because of variables that are outside of our influence or quote control,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we, here we demonstrated a moment where we were able to go and regain. I really struggle with the word control, but I guess it really does apply. We in those breathing moments, we're able to go and reestablish control on what our insides were feeling in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have the ability to influence how we're feeling in a moment. And this is where, in that moment to stop and still, quiet down a little more. That's where we can come back to sensing, what am I really reacting to in this scenario? Like I mentioned earlier about the emotional maturity in our lives and how we are guided by that. If we're constantly guided by our reactions and we're not learning how to respond to our stressful situations, we're going to remain in that cycle.
Yeah.
It's when we break that cycle of going, okay, let me back it up just a tiny little bit, look at this with fresher eyes for just a moment and go, oh, wow, maybe if I change my way of responding to this stressful scenario with improving maturity in our emotions. You're not wrong. I'm not saying that somebody who has, I was emotionally immature for 5 decades. I'll be 57 next month, and only seriously within the past couple of years has my emotional maturity improved in such a way that I don't respond in the ways that I did because something occurred to me when I was that age, or I didn't
Reaction.
learn how, right? Maybe my family of origin didn't understand their emotions and how to navigate through heavy things or whatever, so they stuff them down. But that's not a healthy pattern for us, right? So if we take moments in a session, in this, a 5 breath ground and feel gets you from moment to moment, right? But when we are in a session, we sit down and go, wow, the way I responded in this moment was a little bit too much. And because it's the way I always used to do it. But if I'm not stopping and observing myself to see how I'm reacting and responding, I'm really never going to grow. I'm never going to get stronger emotionally, mature emotionally, so that when the weird dings come in our life, we're not going to be as affected by them.
Good point.
Yes, you said that you noticed it, but it didn't really throw you off
Right.
where you were.
Totally different. Two different
Right.
things.
Right. So this is where, these exercises and why sessions are so valuable for us. And the other day I had a group of friends come over, and, they, it's varied. There's some of us that are single, some of us have teenagers, some have a little bit younger children. And, one person was dealing with, how do I reprimand my nearly adult child when they're not um, cooperating with me? So she had shared her response, shared her how she did things, and in the moment she reacted. And when she shared the story with this group of friends, we said, well, in the moment, we see as parents, we see why you did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we were also able to see, well, did you notice this from your child's perspective and see how that went, and why there was more dissension than maybe desired for? So in these moments of, yes, it's not going my way, we have to have those places where we stop and regulate and say, is my response or reaction to this in proper proportion to what's unfolding?
Mm.
So
I
this is
gotcha.
where,
And Laura, I don't mean to interrupt, but we're past time, so I got to get your final thought, and then let us know how to get a hold of you. I'm sorry, we went over. Let's continue this next time.
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, like I said, I'm really inviting people to just observe their being. How do you move? How do you live? And how do you have your life in the way that you do life? and check your patterns. Begin noticing patterns and saying, is this something that has worked up until now? And if it's causing you concern, it probably isn't. And then sitting back and asking, is there something that I can do about the way I'm reacting versus responding? Now that I have a couple of pieces of information that can help me calm down in those moments, and it isn't always easy in that moment, agreeable, right? But then this is where, sessions come in and we have further conversations and go, okay, how do I do this? So one way to get hold of me is through phone, which is 586-322-9727. Or it's always a great idea to go through my website, which is thequietroom808.com. And for those who may have missed other episodes, we've been downloading these podcasts onto YouTube and putting them onto my website. So under the media tab. And, in addition, I'm going to be looking to be putting maybe these ground and fills on there so that in case somebody wants to return to this and have a resource so that, okay, how did she do that again? That a little bit be more easy to, get to. So
Great idea. Guys, Laura Fluke, great guest. Thank you so much. That was educational and pretty useful. So thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.